All right, so this unit is talking about motivation and emotion. It's one of my favorite units. It's very applicable, especially if you're going to the nursing program. So that's a bonus for sure. So, motivation and emotion. My favorite quote that I have on there is people often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. So that's why we have to recommend it daily. So, motivation is something that people will say, oh, I'm not a very motivated person. Well, you are motivated. If the house is on fire, you're going to get out. If somebody says, meet me at the corner, I'll give you $1,000, suddenly it's not so important that you find your favorite pair of shoes. You just need something on your feet. So it really just depends on what the motivation is and what you're, what is being put out there. So kind of the reinforcer. So let's look at motivation and emotion. So first of all, motivation. Motivation is the wants or needs that direct your behavior towards a goal. You have intrinsic and extrinsic factors. Your intrinsic factors are going to be your internal factors. So things like pride, creativity, joy, something being fun. Like, for example, people always ask me constantly, why don't you move into administration? Why don't you look into, you know, doing therapy full time? And my thing is, I love teaching. Like, I have a passion for it. I enjoy it. It's a little different being completely online, but I do like, because, people don't, classes start to dwindle a bit as you move forward towards the end of the semester, but it still satisfies me to build a really solid course. It's a lot of intrinsic factors. I really feel like I'm giving, and I'm doing something. Extrinsic factors, these are external factors, things like money. Praise can also be external, but praise is also internal. It's intrinsic because of that need to be around others. But extrinsic factors can be things like prizes. Like, for example, anyone attending the lecture gets 2 times chance to win a $20 gift card. So a lot of people will watch the lectures because they're like, oh, I really want a chance for the gift card. But extrinsically, some people are just watching the lectures because they're going to get a gift card. It's not intrinsic. I want the knowledge and the growth. It's, ooh, I want to enter to win that gift card. Hold on just a second. So going back to intrinsic and extrinsic factors. So intrinsic factors, these are the things, the feel-good things. Creativity. Extrinsic is going to be your money, stuff like that. And you could probably think of a lot of extrinsic and intrinsic factors in your life with things that you do. So it's not just like it's all or nothing. Sometimes you're making money and it's like you can get a promotion and you'll make more money, but you'll also be giving an extra 15, 20 hours a week to the job. Is that worth is the extrinsic worth the intrinsic of losing time with your family or things like that? So motivations are often mixed. Obviously, like I just said, both intrinsic and extrinsic. Earlier in your careers, often people are looking for money. They're looking for money. They're looking for achievement. But later in the career, you start looking for more intrinsic factors, time off with family, creativity outlets. And ironically, people think, oh, well, I don't want more to do. People don't want more to do. But the truth is, when we get bored, we'll talk about that in a minute, we get bored with work or bored with what we're doing, a lot of times that can lead to burnout. So the overjustification hypothesis or the overjustification effect, this is when we're getting extrinsic reinforcement without any intrinsic reinforcement for a job may lead to less enjoyment. And basically what that means is that, and the best example I can give is, I like to make PowerPoints. I like to recreate my own PowerPoints. Even though the publisher gives them to me, I like to recreate them. So that in itself is intrinsic to me because I kind of create them the way I want them, what I want to say. So if suddenly the publisher was like, we're going to pay you to make PowerPoints, I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much because I'd have to follow their guidelines and I wouldn't be able to add the extra stuff I add. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I really enjoy making the PowerPoints the way I like to do them, even though it's part of my job. But also another great example of, if you've ever been a volunteer somewhere, a friend of mine was a volunteer at the Humane Society. She was volunteering like 20 hours a week, but she wasn't getting any extrinsic at all. It was all intrinsic. But then they said, well, hey, listen, we can pay you to be here. We have an extra position open. She was like, oh, that would be great. So she got a position working with them, and she started being very unhappy because, she had to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and she had to do this. She got to spend less time just enjoying the animals, which is what she normally did. And even though she was still only doing 20, 25 hours, she felt like, even though I'm getting all this extrinsic reinforcement, I'm not having that intrinsic emotional attachment with the animals. I'm not enjoying myself. So there's only so much money that will make you be able to be satisfied with a job. At some point, or with anything really, at some point you need that intrinsic motivation to kick in. All right, now there's a video on my channel that you can watch. It doesn't play over well. Like if I hit play, you won't be able to hear it. So for some reason with screen share, I have to run it through something different. But you can check it out. It's on my channel, Intrinsic and Extrinsic Motivation. It's my most popular video. Sound quality is not that great, but this was back in the days. But it's a good video. You should check it out. So theories of motivation. Well, William James theorized that we are driven by a number of instincts, obviously. An instinct is a specific pattern that's not learned, such as need to protect baby, urge to lick sugar. That's why we're so hooked on sugar. And then also hunting prey. I mean, we're not going out there and hunting prey, but we are instinctually needing to feed ourselves. So we will take ourselves to the grocery store based on an instinct. The drive theory of motivation proposes that it's homeostasis. Homeostasis basically means a balance. So if you're thirsty, you drink. If you're hungry, you eat. If you are very angry, you have to find a way to release that, to bring yourself back to that homeostasis. Arousal theory. This is where I was going to talk about boredom. This is considered extensions of the drive theory. There's still that drive, but when our arousal levels become too low, we're driven to increase them. We seek something out. If they become too high, we seek to reduce that arousal. And what's really cool is there's studies that were done where they put people in a room, basically. They sat one person down in a room in front of a shock pad. And they told them, this is a shock pad. It gives you so many shocks. And the individual sitting in the room, within 3 minutes of sitting there with no technology, no television, no magazines, 65% of them touched the shock pad, which showed us that individuals would rather physically harm themselves than be bored, which is hilarious. 65% of them not only touch the shock pad, but touch the shock pad more than once. So that shows us that with arousal theory, we don't like to be bored. And we also know that when people get too aroused or too frustrated, that they seek out ways to reduce that frustration. Yerkes Dodson law. This holds that simple tasks that are performed better when arousal levels are relatively high, whereas complex tasks are better performed when arousal levels are low. So when we start talking about your exams, this is why test anxiety messes people up so much. If your arousal level is too high, then your brain is constantly going, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. It can't think, basically. It can't calm itself down. So you have to lower that arousal. But if it's too low and you're completely chill, you're also not going to be able to bring things from long-term memory into working memory. So you've got to have kind of that balance. So when you think about it too, I know that some people will say basketball is not simple, football is not simple. It's not, but it becomes what's called procedural memory. It becomes primed. You learn and memorize the plays so much. This is why they energize themselves when they're out there. Oh, 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 go, 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 go. Because they need a lot of arousal to push those tasks. Because they're relatively easy tasks once you have them in your primed memory. This is why you don't want the person that's flying your plane to be high anxiety. They need to be kind of lower anxiety because that's considered a complex task. All right, so self-efficacy and social motivations. Self-efficacy is the belief that you're able to do something. Now, what's so fun about this is if you believe you can do something, does that automatically mean it happens? Like, I believe that I can fly. I'm not going to be able to jump out of a door and fly, right? A window and fly. No, it's not enough to just believe that you can do something, But if you don't believe you can do something, you probably won't be successful. Like if somebody gives me a puzzle and says, here's a 1,000-piece puzzle. There's 15 pieces missing, but we want you to make the puzzle. Am I going to be motivated to do that puzzle? Absolutely not, because I already know the job can't be finished. There's no point to try, right? But if somebody says, here's a 1,000-piece puzzle, all the pieces are there, I'm going to be more motivated to do it because I know that it can be done. So so self-efficacy is very important because of 3 reasons. 2 seconds. One is because it motivates you. Okay. 2, and I spelled motivates wrong, but that's okay. I can get over that. And I'm writing with a mouse, Melinda. It motivates you. 2, you become more persistent. If you know you can do something, you're more likely to try again. And 3, you feel competent. You feel competent that you can do the task. So hold on just a second. I'm going to hold on just a second. So you become more competent because you know that it's something that you can do. So if for example, if somebody says, oh, hey, do you want to take this chemistry test or chemistry class with me? I would be like, yeah, I'm not even going to try it. My self-efficacy for chemistry is pretty low. I don't have the math skills, yada, yada, yada. I'm not even going to try. But if I look at it and say, well, okay, I have the math skills, I'm capable of doing this, all right, I'm going to push through and try it. So having the high self-efficacy helps you to follow through complete task, and you're more likely to do the task and to complete it and stay motivated if you have the self-efficacy. So Alba Bandura theorized that self-efficacy plays a pivotal role in motivating behavior because our behavior derives from expectations. If your expectation is that, let's say, for example, friends say, hey, let's meet and go to the movies. And your expectation is going to be a horrible night because there's somebody there that you don't really want to be around. You are less likely to go because your expectation is that it won't go well. Do you see what I'm saying? So based on the consequences of your behavior, what your expectations are is what will motivate you to do that behavior. And then social motives, of course, which we totally get this: achievement, affiliation, and intimacy. We are social creatures and we need to be around others. It's just important. So that social motive for achievement, affiliation, intimacy, most all individuals have this need to be with others and have that intimacy and friendships. All right, so getting into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, this is very important for nursing instructors, and it's so funny, and the timing is great because I have Wi-Fi down at the bottom of the hierarchy of needs. It's not actually a need. I just put it there to be funny. If we think about it, Wi-Fi is becoming more and more important in our society, but it's definitely not an absolute on the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we start with the physiological needs with Maslow. It basically works. Maslow initially stated that individuals must satisfy the lower levels deficit needs before processing to meet higher needs of growth. However, he later clarified that's not all or nothing. You can go back down. Like some people maybe don't have the safety needs completely met. They might not be living in a safe neighborhood, or they may be chronically ill, and they can still move into the other needs, the other areas. Our most basic need is the physiological needs. These are biological requirements: sleep, survival, clothing, shelter, sex, warmth. If these needs are not satisfied, the body does not function optimally. Maslow considered the physiological needs obviously most important. And if you think about it, they are extremely important. And I think with nursing, it starts with breathing. Breathing is the most important, and they use like a Maslow type of pyramid, and they compare the two together. So it's a really important thing to learn for the medical fields. Next is safety needs. Once an individual's psychological needs are satisfied, the needs for security and safety become salient. People want to experience order, predictability, and control. They need to be fulfilled by family, society, schools, businesses. For example, emotional security, financial security. These are examples of kind of the safety needs. And obviously the most obvious one would be, living in an area that feels safe. Love and belonging needs. This is after safety and physiological needs have been fulfilled. The third level of human need involves in feelings of belongingness and love. This is the need for interpersonal relationships that motivate our behavior, including like friendships, intimacy, trust, acceptance, receiving and giving love and affection, being affiliated with a group, work or friends. And you can see how if your safety and physiological needs aren't met, then you're not really that concerned about being part of groups or part of organizations because you're trying to meet your basic needs. But once you get through those, then you look for loving belonging. Next is esteem needs, which is right here going into the esteem needs. This is a fourth level, which classified into two categories. It's esteem for oneself, this dignity, achievement, mastery, independence, and then also desire for reputation from others is the other way to look at that. Maslow indicated that this need is for respect and reputation, is most important for children and adolescents, and precedes all self-esteem, all real self-esteem or dignity. So basically during the esteem needs, we are looking for others to see us as the person we believe that we are. So we're trying to reach that respect from others. And like I said before, you could totally see how if these needs aren't met, then you're not really caring too much what people think about you. And it's not as in like, I want people to like what I'm wearing. It's not that type of self-esteem. It's a little bit deeper than that. It's having a group of individuals or a group of people in your life that see you for who you are and respect you on that level for who you are and what you do. Self-actualization, this is the highest need. Now, we also talk about transcendence, which we don't talk about in this class because this is just general psychology. But self-actualization is the highest level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and refers to realization of a person's self-potential, like your full potential. It's described as levels of accomplishing everything that one can to become the most one can. Individuals may perceive or focus this very specifically. For example, one individual may have a strong desire to become an ideal parent, whereas another may want academic or economical goals. So it really is dependent upon the person of where self-actualization has been reached. So I really like to talk about this example because I have a very close friend of mine. She works at the Waffle House in Atlanta, and she has been working there since we were hanging out there. She got a job there and she kind of moved into management, and she's been managing for that particular Waffle House for, gosh, I don't know now, a lot of years because I'm in my 40s, so a lot of years. And she has a wonderful family, wonderful friends, and people are always telling her, you should have gone to college or you should have done this. And she's like, listen, I make plenty of money. I've got close friends. I've got great kids. I have a good house. She's like, what's the deal? And they're like, well, I mean, but you work at Waffle House. And she's like, what? It's a job and I love it. And so she got so much flack for so long because she was working, quote, at Waffle House, which is so ridiculous. I would venture to say that she reached self-actualization way before I did. I mean, she's got a very, very comfortable life. She's very happy. And so you don't want to look at the person and say, oh, they work at Waffle House, they must not be self-actualized. Or, oh, they work at a call shop, they won't be self-actualized. Not the case. Self-actualization is very, very personal. And it's not just, I have a PhD, and I will never get my PhD because I don't want that hassle. Could I? Probably. But I'm not sacrificing my family or my finances to be able to do that. I'd rather my kids go to college than me go to college for $180,000 for 4 more years. It just seems silly. So, but that is Maslow's pyramid in a nutshell for general psychology. All right, so hunger. Now this is kind of like slide reading for the next few slides. When our stomachs are empty, they contract. We have hunger pains. Satiation is the fullness and satisfaction leads to satiation of eating behavior. Satiation, that word is so hard for me, is regulated by blood glucose levels increasing. The pancreas and liver send signals to shut off hunger and eating. Food passage through the gastrointestinal tract, providing important signals, satiety signals to the brain, and fat cells release leptin, and the satiety is a hormone, and we feel satisfied that we have eaten and we're all good. This is kind of, in a nutshell, how the mechanics of hunger work. Metabolism and body weight. I don't know why they threw this in this chapter, but they did with motivation and emotion. But body weight is affected by a number of factors, including gene and environment. Also calories we consume and the number of calories we burn. Your metabolic rate is the amount of energy expended in a given period of time with very wide variation. The set point theory. Okay, set point theory states that an individual has an ideal body weight or set point which is resistant to change. And going further into it, which we do not in general psychology, but just for your own information because it's interesting, they found 4 genetic markers for specific 4 genes for obesity. And so if you have all 4 of these genetic markers, you're looking at being about 15% over normal body weight, even though, and it's going to be nearly impossible to get that 15% off. So when we say somebody is just kind of built larger, they totally can be. But however, the honest truth of it, though, is when you think about set point theory, 15% over regular body weight is like 20 pounds. So if you have somebody who's 300 pounds, like I'm a big girl because I eat a lot of food and I don't exercise all that much. It has nothing to, even if I had all 4 gene factors, it doesn't contribute to everything that's going on with regards to my weight and such. So, I mean, I know I'm a good looking panda bear, you see right here, but however, weight is more driven by caloric intake and exercise than it is necessarily by genetic factors. Although, like I said before, genetic factors, if you have somebody who is just desperately trying to lose that last 15, 20 pounds and they can't, it very well may be because they're genetic predisposed to have that set point weight. If you have any questions, feel free to jump in too. All right, obesity. When someone is generally accepted as healthy for given height, they are considered overweight or obese. When somebody weighs more than generally accepted as healthy for given height, they are considered overweight or obese. And this is just the body mass index CDC categories. Bariatric surgery is a type of surgery that can be done which limits food absorption as well as the size or the amount of food that can be taken in. All right, eating disorders. Bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorders, and anorexia. Binge eating disorder was added in, kind of pulling it out of bulimia, because binge eating disorder differs from bulimia in that the person binges, but they have feelings of guilt and remorse. They don't try to shed the calories. Like, they don't try to get rid of the calories. They just have the remorse from it. Whereas bulimia, the individual takes in the food, but then they try to find ways to dump the food. Like, they try to find ways to get rid of it, like through maybe like vomiting or excessive exercise. Anorexia nervosa is characterized by too low of a body weight, and often with anorexia nervosa, individuals have body dysphoria or body dysmorphic disorder, it's called in the DSM, but body dysmorphia. This is extreme distorted body image. Michael Jackson was rumored to have body dysmorphic disorder because he kept trying to adjust things on his body. Oops. So 15% of individuals that are diagnosed with anorexia nervosa will die from anorexia nervosa. So it's a very, very serious disorder. And we don't go too much into it, again, because it's just general psychology, but that's the basics. All right, so sexual behavior. Much of what we know about sexual behavior comes from animal research, but if you want to know the truth about sex, Masters and Johnson, not Johnson and Johnson, but Masters and Johnson, they do a great deal of sex research with participants. They have all kind of stuff going on. It's pretty good. The results of the research that they have done shows that the hypothalamus plays a big role in sexual behavior. The limbic system structures in the amygdala and nuclei accumbens are also especially important for motivational behavior, sexual motivation behavior. The ability to engage in sexual behavior and motivation is also are also mediated by different systems in the brain. Hormones secreted by the endocrine system also play a role in sexual motivation and behavior. And again, general psychology, we don't go into too terrible detail, but I have it. Okay, I was going to see if I had a slide for the sexual response cycle. Alfred Kinsey initiated the first large-scale research in 1940s, and some of the results he found were shocking to society. Women are interested in sexual experiences as much as their male counterparts. Oh, shocking. In 1940s, that was really shocking, okay? But both males and females masturbate without adverse health consequences. Your hands don't get hairy and you don't go blind. And homosexual acts are actually fairly common. And this was done in the 1940s. So this was a very, very shocking research that came out. Kinsey also developed a Kinsey scale, which is used today to categorize an individual's sexual orientation. However, it's always dangerous to say, I took a test and it says that I'm straight, or I took a test and it says that I'm gay. That's not something that we want to pigeonhole people into. But the Kinsey scale is still used today. Masters and Johnson's research. With Masters and Johnson, the most important bit of research they put out, they put out tons of research, really good stuff, was the sexual response cycle. Sexual response cycle starts with excitement and then leads to kind of a plateau, and then orgasm, and then resolution. The excitement phase obviously is pre-touching, playfulness, kissing, anything in erotica. And then going into plateau, this is where you kind of make the decision, is it going to move forward? Is it going to happen? It may fizzle out. Then the orgasm, of course, is climax. And then resolution. During resolution, you have what's called a refractory period. For women, they can have multiple orgasms that can happen quite rapidly right after orgasm. They can have more. But they're still going to reach a resolution phase. But for men, more so, a refractory period. But for men, more so, the refractory period happens. They cannot orgasm again until they become erect again, which could take a significant amount of time depending on the age of the individual. Also, they collected important information about intercourse and reproduction anatomy, multiple orgasms in women, penis length in men. They found that, the penis length in men does not determine whether or not or length of time men can stay erect, or how long orgasms take. That is not a deciding factor. Sexual orientation, and again, this is general psychology, so we're only very loosely touching on these this information. So if you want more information, feel free to email me. I'll be happy to talk with you about it. But sexual orientation is an individual's emotional and erotic attraction to same-sex individuals, which is homosexual, or opposite-sex individual, which is heterosexual, or both, which is bisexual. It's a bit of a myth that a bisexual person cannot be sexually satisfied unless they have both male and female in their life. They can totally be sexually satisfied by having one partner that they decide is their life partner. So whether it's a male or female, it's not a matter of I have to have a man and a woman all the time or I'm not satisfied. No, it's just that they have that erotic attraction to males or females. Research evidence suggests that sexual orientation has an underlying biological component. Data suggests that to a significant extent, sexual orientation is something which we are born. Data just suggests it, though. There's nothing that's proven that. It's not a provable thing. We can't say, hey, here's the gay gene. It just doesn't exist. We haven't found that. However, research also has determined sexual orientation is not a choice, but rather a relatively stable characteristic that cannot be changed once it's decided upon. This is where we have to get into the danger zone of, if you have a 13-year-old, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old who's experimenting, says, I'm gay, but then at 22 meets somebody and, maybe I was bisexual. Oh, now I'm spending the rest of my life with a different sex partner. I must not have been gay. That has to be allowed to happen, or vice versa the other way, whichever way you want to spin that. Simply because experimentation does not define orientation. And that's something that, is being taught now. Experimentation doesn't define orientation. That first person that you have a crush on or have any kind of sexual interaction with doesn't auto kick you into particular sexual orientation. All right, gender identity refers to one's sense of being male or female. Generally, gender identity corresponds to chromosomal and phenotypic sex, but it's not always the case. So you have XX and XY, XX, XY. Chromosomally, you have male and female. Female, this being female, we've already done the bio chapter, but this being male just in case. Gender dysphoria, this is still in the DSM. This is where an individual does not feel comfortable identifying with the gender associated with their biological sex they experience. Not the same as an individual who is transgender, or an individual who is transitioning from male to female. Gender dysphoria is when the individual is very uncomfortable and does not want to have those feelings. So it is still in the DSM. It's something that is still very hot topic, extremely hot topic within the field of psychology. Gender dysphoria must persist for at least 6 months and result significant distress or dysfunction and meet DSM criteria to be diagnosed. Many people who are gender dysphoric live their lives in ways that are consistent with one gender identity. So again, if the person is not distressed of the change of the gender identity, one would argue that they would not be diagnosable with gender dysphoria disorder. It wouldn't be a diagnosable criteria for the DSM as a mental health disorder if they are comfortable with the change in identity. Kris Jenner, for example, theoretically would not be diagnosed with a disorder because he did transition over to a woman. Interesting stuff and still a very hot topic in psychology. All right, so let's talk about our emotions and our mood. My mood is very good today, although it's been a crazy day already, and I'm only halfway through it. Emotion and mood. Emotion, subjective state of being that we often describe as our feelings. This is a big word here. This is the most important word here, subjective, because emotions are very subjective. How you feel about a situation may be completely different than how someone else feels about a situation. Emotion indicates a subjective affective state that is relatively intense and occurs in response to something we experience. Emotions are often thought to be consciously experienced and intentional. Mood, however, is a little bit different than emotion. This is our prolonged, intense, affective state that does not occur in response to something we experience. Mood states may not be consistently recognized and do not carry intentionality that's associated with emotions. So a mood is going to be something that's longer and more intense, and it's kind of maintained rather than I'm going to put myself in a good mood. No, it's more like I am currently not happy. I am unsatisfied with something, which is making me angry. And that is an emotion. And you have behavior based on that emotion you experience. But mood itself, the mood you can be in, you can still have a default mood, a default mood where it's like I'm still happy with life. I'm still okay with myself. I'm still have joy. This is my mood. And that's just defined by psychology. So active state, it's not necessarily something that we intentionally put ourselves into the mood. It just happens based on kind of forces that are driving kind of behind the scenes. So we may be very angry about something, and our behavior is reflecting that emotion. And if gone on long enough, we can definitely get into a dysthymic mood, which is like a depressed mood or a sad mood or an angry mood. But it's not something that intentionally I'm going to be in a bad mood today. It's not intentionally done. So 3 different theories of emotion, and I'm actually going to pull this over. I have this prepped up here for you. I had it prepped for you. I had to shut this down to pull it up. We switched over. Nope. No, thank you. Where is he? There it is. All right. So let me pull this over for you. Wah, wah, wah. Oops, that's not it. There we go. Because it's really great when you see it like this. All right, so we've got the James Lange theory. The James Lange theory asserts that emotions arise from physiological arousal. This theory, one would only experience feeling of fear after physiological arousal has taken place. So you have the event, there's a bear, then you have the physiological arousal. Your hands start sweating, your mouth starts getting dry. Then you interpret it, I'm freaking out because there's a bear, and then you have the emotion, fear. Okay? F-E-A-R. Go. Writing with a mouse. Cannon Bard says, however, you see the bear, you have the I'm afraid and the arousal at the exact same time. The Sacher-Singer theory says that you have the event, you become aroused, and then you reason out what's going on. Now, the difference here is they look the same. It's like these are the same. James Lange thing. The difference between James Lange is James Lange say you interpret the arousal and then you have the emotion. So let's say it's a bear, okay? A bear jumps out. Your physiological reaction is your hands are sweating, your mouth dries up, your heart starts racing, you start shallow breathing, your norepinephrine kicks in, your fight or flight's kicking in, okay? Your arousal is, this is going on, I must be afraid. But here's the problem. If you are getting sexually aroused by something, all of those same things are happening. Your mouth is getting dry, your heart's starting to race a little bit. So if you interpret it and say, I am afraid, are you afraid? No, you're sexually aroused. So instead, Singer says that what we're doing is we now need to reason what's going on. We need to think about it. We need to, and here's the 2-factor right here, if you look here. We need to cognitively label what is going on with this arousal before we have the emotion. So the emotion then is love, or maybe it's the emotion is lust, or the emotion is, maybe it is fear. But that's the difference between these two. Lange is just interpreting the arousal, whereas Singer is looking at what does the arousal mean? What is the label for the arousal? All right, and then that's the cognitive mediation that Lazar's pushes a little bit more further. He says that we need to take time to appraise what the stimulus is, what is going on exactly. So he takes it a little bit further. Structures that have to do with emotion. The hypothalamus plays a role in sympathetic nervous system as part of emotional reaction. Thalamus is like your switchboard. So it kind of kicks back where things are like, if you see something that's fearful, it's going to kick it to the right place. But it works with the amygdala and the higher cortical regions for further processing. The amygdala plays a huge role in especially fear emotions, but also in being able to recognize facial expressions with emotion. If the amygdala is damaged, an individual will not be able to recognize happy versus sad versus angry. They won't be able to recognize those facial expressions. And then lastly, the hippocampus, which integrates emotional experience with cognition, because the hippocampus has a great deal to do with memory. So it's kind of integrating those things. With regards to, let me put this up. Universal expressions of emotion. I'm going to cut this for you and pop this up here. We have there are basically, oops, this is a good one. It's so tiny. Still so tiny. See if I can find a better one. There we go. All right. This one has embarrassment added, which is good. So here's the basic emotions. All right, so our basic emotions, these are universal expressions, okay? Anger, sadness, happiness, fear, disgust, surprise, contempt, and embarrassment. So these are, these expressions here, these are universal. Meaning that if I show this to this picture here to anyone in the world, they will say that this is angry. If I show this to anyone in the world, they will say that this is sadness. They might not have the word sadness, but they say it's as if they've lost someone they love. Well, that's indicative of sadness. Okay, so these are universal. So with the facial feedback hypothesis, this asserts that if we smile, if we do this, like just pull your teeth back, pull your lips back and do a big smile. If you do that, your body will start to release serotonin. It'll start to release dopamine. It's like, wait a minute, I'm smiling. I must be happy. So it thinks it's happy. So it's the facial feedback hypothesis. If you make an angry face all the time, it's going to think you're angry. With patients that suffer from anxiety, a lot of the times we'll ask them to open their eyes a little wider and raise their eyebrows during the day. Like to consciously open your eyes a little wider and raise your eyebrows. Like to consciously try to do that, to give that facial feedback hypothesis that I'm okay, things are fine, it's a bright day, we're good. It's not 100%. You can't just smile and everything goes away and it's all better, but it has been shown with research that if you get that smile on your face, if you raise your eyebrows, if you have your eyes open a little wider, your body does respond physiologically, and it does help to unintentionally, it sends your body signals to change that mood. Remember, we said the mood is not necessarily intentional, so it helps the body to kind of curb that mood that may be more anxious. All right, body language. These are expressions of emotion in terms of body positioning or movement. Research suggests that we are sensitive to the emotional information communicated through body language, even if we're unaware of it. This is a really interesting, there's things called microexpressions. Okay, things called microexpressions, and I can't really do it obviously because I'm a panda right now. But this, for example, here, this is the face of disgust. Okay, so think about if you walk into a room and somebody makes this expression, but only for a microsecond, only for like a very brief, like real quick. Hi, how are you? You're gonna feel kind of unsettled, but you don't know why you feel unsettled. You're like, I don't know why I feel uncomfortable here. Or if somebody gives you like a really like angry look, but it's only that micro expression. Like, for example, I walked into a store one time and this woman, she like took in a breath and made this quick angry face. It was like a microsecond, but I caught it right when I walked in. I saw it and she was like, hi, can I help you? And she had her eyebrows raised and she was smiling. And I was like, I said, you must have been in the middle of something pretty intense. Am I bugging you? You want to finish what you're doing real quick? And she was like, oh, no, you're fine. And I was like, no, I don't mind. And she's like, okay, thank you so much. And she went back to what she was doing. It took her like 2 seconds. She finished it up. And then she said, thank you so much. She's like, I have been trying desperately all morning to get this drawer counted, the last bit of the drawer counted and turned in, but I kept getting interruptions. And I was like, oh, no worries. I'm glad you got to take care of it. So she did shoot me an angry face, but it wasn't towards me. It wasn't at me, but she couldn't help the micro expression because she was like, dang it, somebody's coming in here again. Which can really hurt a business because it can make you feel uncomfortable. So micro expressions are really, really powerful expressions that people can make intentionally or unintentionally. Oh, that's it. Well, thank you so much for being here. If you have any